He also knew that the Army of the Potomac could not defeat an entrenched Confederate army. Rather than attack frontally, Grant decided to employ maneuvering and constantly probed to find vulnerable points. He gave some immediacy to his plans, for his 3-year enlistments were almost up. And likely he, too, had concerns about his lieutenants. He liked Second Corps Commander Major General Winfield Scott and liked his willingness to follow orders. He believed the Army of the Potomac's commander, George Gordon Meade, was unable to make his army a unified offensive weapon. Father, cautious. As for his Fifth Corps commander, Grant believed Major General Gouverneur Warren, rebellious, Sixth Corps commander Horatio Wright unproven, and Ambrose Burnside bereft of any aptitude for combat. All that said, Grant believed the May 12th fighting at Spotsylvania's Mule Shoe Salient had cracked Lee's men, and all that was required was one more hammer. He wanted to strike yet again. On May 13th, he wanted the 5th and 6th Federal Corps to slide to the southeast behind the 2nd and 9th. At 4 a.m. on the 14th, Warren's 5th and Wright's 6th would hit Jubal early on the eastern face of the old Confederate salient. It was a bold plan, particularly after the desperate attacks over the last few days, and it was typical Grant. He knows what's done beyond conceiving the plan. Rains turned roads into muddy soup. Ambulance and prisoners followed at the roads, and the troops that would make the attacks were exhausted, hungry, and without provisions. Without the benefit of Sheridan's Union cavalry, Grant lacked info about Lee's line and numbers on the Confederate eastern flank. Mud, rain, darkness, plague warriors moved. Few reached the jumping off point, so the attack was pushed back. Still, on the 14th, there was a fight at Myers Hill, high ground that, if in Confederate hands, would allow them to see Union dispositions and intercept any Union swing to the southeast. And if in Union hands, Grant's plan for the 5th and 6th Corps could be more efficiently carried out. Held by Confederate cavalry, the move to capture Myers Hill began at 7 a.m. By late afternoon, it was in Union hands. As to both commanders, questions still abound as to what they did or did not do afterwards. Why did the usually aggressive Grant not follow this acquisition up? Undoubtedly, bad rhetoric influenced the Union commander, as did doubts about both Warren and Wright. And certainly by now, Grant had given Lee the respect due as a defensive fighter. He assumed Lee would move troops into the sector, but in fact, Lee had not moved a single soldier to counter the Union occupation of Myers Hill. The psychological play between these two kings on the chessboard, there is compelling evidence that on this day, Lee held the upper hand. Perhaps Lee did not completely understand Grant's buildup near the Fredericksburg Road, but one thing cannot be misunderstood. Robert E. Lee was aggressive, and he planned to retake Myers Hill. The landmark was in front of Jubal Early's section of the Confederate line, and he indeed received orders to recapture the high ground. Turning both Union flanks, Early's men did just that. Now came word from Lee's left, from Anderson. He reported no Union presence before him. That intelligence spurred Lee to believe that Grant was reorienting his men, and if so, it might be an opportunity to strike while Grant and his people were in motion. Meanwhile, Major General George Gordon Meade, who narrowly escaped capture at Myers Hill, but did lose his fighting, wanted Myers Hill retaken. At 6:30 p.m. on the 14th of May, men from the 5th Corps retook the high ground, much to the delight of both Meade and Grant. Maybe, just maybe, Warren was coming around. As Saturday, May 14th ended, it is memorable not for what Grant and Lee did to it, but what they did. Warren and Wright had been in position to storm Lee's right, but for once, Grant did not pull the trigger. Usually aggressive Lee, aware of Grant's shifting after Anderson's notification, did little to counter the federal movement until late afternoon. The next day, Sunday, 15th, was the 11th consecutive day of fighting that wore heavily on both Confederate and Federal troops. Another day of rain that did little to make anything better. As one New Yorker wrote, "We are in mud up our ass." Grant subsequently when he canceled all operations that day. On Monday, there was yet more wet and gloom, at least for those in blue mail finally caught up. Given the dispositions and missed opportunities on the 14th, Grant admitted there was little he could do. The next day, the 17th, there was more rain, but in the morning it ended. Finally, the sun came out and Grant wanted to strike. He wanted yet another attack, much like May 12th at Spotsylvania Courthouse, but with plans to exploit any breakthrough. Step off at 4 a.m. the next day, 18th. Burnside's 9th Corps was to hit Harry Peake's Confederate position, while Hancock's 2nd and Wright's 6th Corps would attack him the same nightmarish ground that witnessed the slaughter and horror of May 12th, the Bloody Hammer.
Yes, Randy, grab your side of buckets. Choose a game. Start money cash.
As Attorney General, I fight for you, taking on greed corporations that harm Coloradans, and fighting bullies like Donald Trump in court and winning 34 times and counting, as governor, I'll protect the rights and freedoms of all Coloradans.
With Rachel, we make it easy to earn extra cash. She just has to list and sell what she doesn't wear, all with 0 fees. Don't wear it, sell it.
Lee received information that made him believe a Union attack would hit his southern. Soldiers in Hancock and Wright's Corps moved to their staging areas. They found themselves in Hill's half acre, ground for May 12th, and burial parties had not completed the work. The stench was simply overpowering. Corpses lay in rotted heaps. Soldiers stuffed leaves into their nostrils to mask the smell and tried to snatch the rest of the food. Promptly at 4 a.m., Union artillery roared. The 2nd and 6th Federal Corps, under the cover of a thick fog, moved forward. Back at the 12th, Confederates in the mule shoe salient did not have the iron protection of artillery. This time, they did. Many of their shells exploded among the decomposing bodies of the 12th, splattering many of the Union attackers with fragments of decomposed flesh. Stated simply, all Union attacks that morning, Burnside, Warren, and Wright's were in the midst of that human gore and slaughter. Hancock and Wright's men were ordered to stop at 8:45 a.m. and Burnside's by 9. The 18th of May added 1,500 more Union casualties and a negligible loss for Lee. Responsibility for the botched Union assault lay squarely on the shoulders of Lieutenant General Ulysses S. Grant. Once again, he initiated an operation on the spur of a moment without proper reconnaissance and without true knowledge of the enemy's position. Once again, he sent troops across open fields into the very teeth of Lee's entrenched men. Once again, he acted on hunches rather than concrete evidence. He misjudged the strength of Lee's earthworks and the combat readiness of the Southern soldier. But Wednesday started off bad. It got worse. general-in-chief not only suffered 1,500 casualties and a reversal, but so had other federal armies in various theaters east and west. Out west, Major General Nathaniel Banks' Red River campaign was a failure. In the Shenandoah Valley, Grant learned that on the 15th, Major General Franz Sigel and his federal army were defeated by Major General John C. Breckinridge's Confederate forces, which included 247 VMI cadets. Battle of New Army. And down on the Virginia Peninsula at Bermuda 100, Major General Benjamin Butler managed to effectively bottle up his own force. 4-mile stretch of land between the James and Appomattox rivers. By late in the day of that Wednesday, the 18th, Grant had to admit Lee had bested him in Spotsylvania Courthouse. However, when Micah McClellan, Barclay, fall back, Grant reacted to all the federal misfortune, action. He wanted to move to the southeast, to the North Anna and Hanover Junction. Thursday the 19th, it was clear, hot, with armies exhausted. And yet the Southern commander learned that Union forces were no longer in front of the Confederate left. They were moving, and like Grant, Lee once again saw opportunity. If Grant was shifting to the south or southeast, then maybe Confederate soldiers could get a strike the road to turn Grant's right. That assignment, Richard's second corps,